The Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team since the peak Warriors, a generationally great defense that doesn't have a single weakness, combined with the MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, young stars JDub and Chet, and a combination of the best role players in the league like Caruso, Hartenstein, Dort, Cason, and Wiggins. OKC won 68 games and were one of the greatest regular season teams ever and on their way to the finals, being one of the youngest teams to accomplish this feat. But to really understand just how good this team can be, we must go into how the team was created and the failures of the previous era. By the way, the chapters are on screen, so if you just want to watch the analyzation of the roster or how historically dominant they are, then you can just skip ahead. As we all know, OKC once had a different young trio that was supposed to take the league by storm. Sam Presti took over as GM of the Supersonics in their last season and would build a team with KD, Russ, Harden, and Ibaka. This team would make the finals in 2012 off an elite Durant Conference Finals comeback, but lose to a LeBron-led Heat squad that was really bound to win it eventually. And that's a lesson that many teams need to learn. You may not always make it back, so capitalize on every chance you get. This won't be the last time you hear this. We see this so commonly. Last year's Mavs, the 2021 Bengals, the 2022 Suns, and what makes every upcoming finals so important, OKC especially, they might not be back. But back to this run, it was the last finals this version of the Thunder would have. James Harden would get traded because of salary discussions and turn into an MVP level player in Houston, and OKC would have a disappointing 2013 playoffs after a 60-win season. Russ and KD would struggle to stay healthy at the same time over the next 2 years despite a 2014 conference finals appearance, and we all know what would happen in 2016. OKC would beat an elite Spurs team in the second round before choking a 3-1 lead to the 73-win Warriors. All three of those final losses were close, both Golden State making the last two finals and taking over the league. Kevin Durant came to a conclusion. The Thunder will never win the title in this era. The Slim Reaper would sign with the Bay squad in the offseason, and their championship window would officially close. OKC would keep trying to contend with some memorable moves, like Russell Westbrook winning 2017 MVP, trading Oladipo and Sabonis for Paul George, and making a big three with Carmelo, but nothing would work. The Thunder couldn't get past the first round, and after Dame hit a 36-foot sidestep three to eliminate the Thunder in a 50-point game, it was clear that it was over, or maybe it was just the start for this era. The 2019 offseason was one of the most eventful in recent memory, and the Kawhi Leonard free agency decision was the most hyped part. Kawhi was coming off a championship run in Toronto, where he was known to most as the best player in the world. Well, after a few days of free agency, Kawhi would end up signing with the Clippers under the promise that they would pair him with a star, that being Paul George, but to get him, they would have to give up a lot. PG was coming off a season that he was an MVP finalist, and at 28, he was still one of the best handful of players. OKC wouldn't give him up unless it was for a complete haul, and that's what they got. 4 first-round picks, 3 of which being their own, 3 first-round pick swaps, Danilo Gallinari, and a rookie role player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA was a two-way defender from the jump who was an encouraging finisher and would even play pretty good in the 2019 playoffs, not missing a single game. While many were bought in on him becoming a very good player, not many saw his transformation into the MVP level player he is today. But that wasn't all that would happen this offseason, as the Thunder would also trade away franchise legend Russell Westbrook, getting Chris Paul 2 first and 2 pick swaps in return. This signified the end of the first era of OKC basketball, and while the Thunder were expected to tank, CP3 would lead them to a very unexpected playoff appearance. While the Thunder would lose in a devastating 7-game series to the Rockets, it would give the younger guys more playoff experience, including undrafted rookie Dort, who would score 30 in Game 7. But it was time to embrace the tank. This team wasn't even supposed to really make it here. The Thunder would trade away Chris Paul and longtime Thunder Steven Adams, picking up a bunch of picks including Al Horford and Kenrich Williams. Throughout the offseason, they would also promote Mark Daigneault to head coach, who had been with the G League team and an assistant before this promotion. They would finish with the 4th worst record and 6th pick, drafting Josh Giddey, and also trading away Alperen Sengun, but snagging Aaron Wiggins at 55th. Al Horford would also get traded away, but Shai would sign an extension after averaging 24, 6, and 5, but only playing 35 games, so the Thunder can tank. OKC would finish with the 4th worst record again in 2022, but had a completely franchise-changing draft. They would land 2nd in the lottery, and throughout all the smokescreen theatrics of Paolo Banchero versus Jabari Smith Jr., it was always Chet at 2. Unfortunately, he would break his foot playing an exhibition game in the summer and miss the entire 22-23 season, but Presti wasn't done cooking yet. He would draft JDub 12th, maybe the best pick of his in the entire era, and he would also take Ousmane Dieng 11th, but more impressively, the other Jalen Williams in the second round, and would sign Isaiah Joe, who had just rode the Sixers bench for the last 2 seasons, and everything would be different. OKC would take a massive leap, going 40-42, and even won a play-in game before falling to Minnesota in the second one, but it was a huge success of a season. Shai had taken the jump to superstardom, finishing 5th in MVP voting while averaging 30, and JDub was in Rookie of the Year contention. While the team still clearly wasn't finished yet, they still had time, and in the draft they would get Cason Walls, while Chet would make his rookie season, and this team became insane. 57 wins, most in a decade, and become the youngest team ever to be a first seed. Shai would somehow get even better, reaching top 5 conversations and finishing 2nd in MVP voting, and Chet would finish 2nd in Rookie of the Year, and would have won it if it wasn't for a literal alien reaching the league. They would smoke New Orleans in the first round, a complete sweep, but struggle with Dallas as they would fall in 6th, but it showed many things about this team that they needed to know. Shai would step up to the occasion, averaging a very efficient 30 throughout the playoffs, but another key player clearly couldn't, Josh Giddey. The Mavs would exploit him on both sides of the ball, and offensively he was sinking the ship, missing open threes and getting taken out of the game. While this was the key for the young guys to get some playoff experience and be able to experience the big moments, it was also clear there were some small changes that needed to be made. Over the offseason they would do just that, trading away one of the original young guys in the core, Giddey, for an experienced, scrappy defensive-minded guard who had already won a championship in Alex Caruso, while also signing Isaiah Hartenstein, who was great for the Knicks last season, and drafted AJ Mitchell and an injured Nikola Topic. But that leads up to this year. So just how are the Thunder so good? Well, of course, it starts with the MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA is the Thunder's offense and star. They bought in on him when the rebuild started, and he has more than delivered, and his best quality is his complete scoring package. Shai is the best scorer in the league, and with Luka and Embiid's regression, it's not even that close anymore. Of course, we have to talk about Shai getting to the line. Yeah, it is kind of annoying to constantly see him trying to get fouls, but it is a skill. A superstar that is as lanky as him with the driving prowess that he has is already going to have an advantage at getting free throws, but he's also a master at understanding angles and baiting defenders, and that combination is legit unstoppable. But let's talk about his driving, which is the best we have seen in a while. Shai is very quick. He may not be the fastest player, but he's quick and has a very good first step, being able to get past his defender and downhill pretty easily. His understanding of angles also helps a lot, and when he gets inside, he's elite at making the shots. He had by far the most drives and still shot at an absurd 56.7% rate, the highest of the 15 players with the most attempts. But Shai is also an elite shooter. He utilizes the mid-range at an insane rate, but has been one of the best shooters from that area for years. His ability to just get to his spots, great maturity in the pick and roll, and driving prowess leads players to struggle defending him in the mid-range. Shai also has a fearsome post-up game, and though he won't body most players, if he gets good positioning, his height helps him allow to fade away over guys. Shai also took a leap in his three-point shooting this year. He made a by far career-high 163 threes this season and shot at a 37.5% rate, despite a lot of those being pull-up threes. He has a nice step back and can just rise over smaller guards. Defenders being scared of his driving also lets him get better looks, and taking that shooting jump makes him a much more complete offensive player and the clear best scorer in the league. Now, where it gets kind of weird is with his playmaking and ability to raise his teammates' play. While Shai's processing is significantly behind elite playmakers like Hallie, Jokic, and Luka, and that holds him back from being a top 5 type of playmaker, his scoring gravity is just so scary. He isn't the craziest playmaker, but because of the defensive coverages that he gets, he's a much better playmaker than he actually should be. He draws so much pressure, especially when reaching the paint, and can make good reads a majority of the time. As an offensive player, he's nearly impossible to stop because of his all-around scoring, plus the playmaking to alleviate him, and he's also good as a defender. Now, the all-defense votes have got him slightly overrated on that side of the ball. He's nowhere near that level of defender and not even a top 5 defender on the Thunder. That's not a shot at him, he's still a positive. His length, quickness, and shot blocking make him a big plus, and he can work as a POA defender to guards. Though he isn't some DPOY, not many guards at his offensive level in recent memory have been this good defensively, and he's one of the best two-way players in the league. With this offensive responsibility, are not supposed to be this good on defense. But OKC also wouldn't be here without Jalen Williams. JDub wasn't supposed to be this good. He was a 21-year-old coming out of Santa Clara and wasn't even too high on draft boards before a late rise that landed him in the back of the lottery, still below Johnny Davis and teammate Ousmane Dieng. But from day one, it was obvious that Dub is so much better than we expected. Now, I am a bit lower on JDub than most and thought he would be an X-Factor player in this playoffs, but for the most part, he showed up. Williams is an absurdly good shot maker. He can't create much space consistently, but uses his size and shot making to be an elite scorer, and it worked in an amazing way, especially in the conference finals. His offensive processing and consistency is a big question mark and has led the offense to completely rely on Shai at times, but overall, over a long sample span, his shot making is just so good that it doesn't matter much, and he's an all-star and was also an all-defensive player. He's one of the best defenders in the league and doesn't have much weaknesses on that side, even being able to play the small ball 5 if needed. And to complete the trio is Chet Holmgren. Despite missing his rookie season and half of this year, when this dude plays, he's legit unstoppable. Now offensively, he doesn't always offer the most production, but he's still a very good player on that end and can reach some very high heights. Just being a 7'2" floor spacer offers a lot of value, but also what he can do. He's able to put the ball on the floor and drive off his own handle, and is also a competent enough passer. Chet also runs a mean pick and roll with Shai, and with just how many ways both of them can score and Chet's mobility at that height, it is pretty much unstoppable for the defense. They're going to get a solid look a very high amount of the time. Chet's versatility at that size is just nuts, and he seems to have more on-ball potential, especially earlier in the year. He was putting the ball on the floor way more, and it worked very well. He, as a shot creator, offers a lot of lineup versatility, making 2 big lineups with iHeart actually really useful, but he's much better defensively, where he may already be a top 5 player on that side of the ball. Now, being in this good of a defense where everyone thrived and helped each other definitely lets Chet do his role better, but he's still a complete beast. Chet's movement at that size lets him cover and defend so much space, and he's a game breaker, knocking away balls constantly. He's also an elite rim protector, and next to Hartenstein, scoring inside is nearly possible. He's a pretty good rim deter and a smart defender, knowing where to position himself and being able to keep up with smaller defenders. Chet's potential is sky high, and after just 160 total games, he's already an All-NBA candidate. But what about the guy that has helped elevate this defense even more and a theft in an offseason trade, Alex Caruso? Somehow the Thunder didn't even have to give up a first-rounder for him and traded away the biggest liability of last year. Giddey was legit horrible offensively and got picked on both sides of the ball. Well, that's the complete opposite for Caruso. This man, who's 6'5", guarded Nikola Jokic in Game 7, the biggest Thunder game in 9 years, and he was amazing. Jokic was held to just 20 points and 10 field goal attempts, and that was a result of Caruso's fronting, which didn't even let Jokic get the ball. He's such an insane defender and likely one of the best non-big defenders currently. He can do everything. At 6'5", he's an amazing rim defender for his height, an amazing team defender. He's a pest that can knock away balls and is one of the best at point of attack in the league. He'll do anything you ask him to and will thrive, making him so valuable, and even offensively, he's slightly underrated. Caruso is a solid non-primary playmaker and will do the little things on that side, while having stepped up as a shooter more in this playoffs. OKC is so deep that Caruso is the player some defenses help off of, but he has punished them in a huge way, shooting 41.5% from deep this playoffs. The Thunder have had another huge addition in the offseason though, that being iHeart. The former Knicks center can already have his absence felt in MSG, as throughout the first part of the season, Brunson struggled a lot more without a lead screen setter until Robinson returned. Hartenstein has also provided OKC with much more big depth, something they struggled with heavily last year and was a reason why Dallas beat them. Having the double big lineup is something that works very well in today's NBA. He's also a great defensive rebounder and positions himself well to allow other players to get the rebound. He moves well for his size and is a big force inside, while being a solid decision maker and has nice touch. He's a big impact on both sides of the ball and is a good vet piece for a young team, like a player who's been here forever in Dort. He was a DPOY candidate this season as a big physical defender. Opposing fans hate him, and that's because he leans into his physicality, and like some say, you can't call every foul, and Dort lives by that. He gives similar shades to Jrue Holiday. He's not the tallest player, as both are listed at just 6'4", but both are built like NFL linebackers and are great POA defenders. Lou will force you off your spot, but also keep up with your driving, and is just a force to be reckoned with on that end. And even if he isn't the first or second best defender on OKC, he's a guy that they will rally behind on that end. Offensively, he's not the sharpest. Sometimes he will have too much of a green light and take chances away from others, and it has been a rough playoffs for him, but his value is clearly on the defensive side of the ball, where he's insane. Cason is another game breaker. Despite being in just his second season, he's a complete pest on defense, being a great defensive playmaker and wrecking havoc. He's also fast enough to stay with the fastest guards and fights very well from behind to stay in the play. And on offense, this dude makes momentum shots. He knows his role and won't do much, but he can have some explosive shots and dunks. Isaiah Joe also hasn't played much this playoffs, but he's been solid throughout the season, and the other Jalen Williams has improved heavily this year and become a player that can play key playoff minutes and not be a big negative unlike last season. Well, OKC won 68 games this season, and it was a completely dominating run. They became just the 7th team ever to win that many games, and the 2nd this century, with the, of course, other one being the 2016 Warriors. But they didn't just win, they dominated. 54 of their 68 wins this season were by 10 or more points, the most ever, and with 7 playoff wins of double digits, they have 61 total wins in double digits, the most in NBA history, despite still having another series to play. Throughout the whole season, they wouldn't just win games, they would dominate the entire game. Overall, OKC would have the 2nd best net rating in NBA history. Yes, by average score, they are the 2nd best team to ever play the game of basketball, only trailing the 72-win Bulls. This is the best team of the century by win differential and are clear of last year's historic Boston Celtics. Even in the playoffs, where OKC has slightly been worse than many's expectations and even got taken to 7, they are still historically elite. Their net rating of plus 10.8 ranks 9th in NBA history and 7th among all post-merger teams. 5 of their teams above them include the Dynasty Bulls, Warriors, Shaq Lakers, Showtime Lakers, but also this year's Cavs with an inflated net rating due to the first round and close losses to Indy. They even have a higher net rating in both the regular season and playoffs than the 1986 Celtics and 2018 Warriors, both teams considered being some of the best ever, but they may be even better than what they should. SRS, Simple Rating System. SRS is a metric that measures a team's average point differential and their strength of schedule. A score over 5 is a team that can compete for a championship. A score over 8 is usually the best regular season team that season, and a score over 10 is one that only a handful of teams have ever had. Just 4 teams have ever been above 11, and none have been above 12 until this season. OKC absolutely shattered this chart with a score of 12.7. This is a historically good team, and despite being in an insanely deep Western Conference in the most talented era of basketball, they ran through the whole league. Now defensively is where the Thunder were one of the best teams ever. The depth on OKC is absolutely nuts. Their playoff rotation features Chet, Caruso, Cason, JDub, Dort, SGA, Wiggins, and Joe. There is not a single negative defender in that group, and most of them are huge positives, with 4 to 5 legitimate top 25-ish defenders on the planet. This level of defensive depth doesn't let teams pick on a single player, reducing mismatches and makes it a million times harder to score. For most teams with premier offensive players, if you're going through a cold streak, then you could just pick on the opposing defensive liability. Well, with the Thunder, there is none. The Thunder's defensive rating of 107.5 of course led the league, and second place wasn't particularly close, with the Magic trailing by nearly 2 points, meaning that this is by far the best team at limiting the other team scoring in the league. And at the end of the day, that's what matters on defense. But how good is this compared to era? Relative defensive rating is a stat that we talk a lot on this channel. This compares a team's offensive or defensive rating to that season's and can kind of accurately compare a team's offense or defense statistically through era, at least better than any stat I know. And among every team to ever play, this is a top 20 team in relative D rating, but a lot of the pre-merger Celtics and Lakers teams dominate this list. So among post-merger, which was about 50 years ago, they place 11th all time. So among the last 50-ish years, this Thunder team is almost a top 10 statistical regular season defense, and the 10 teams better being the 93 and 94 Knicks, 99, 04, 05, and 2016 Spurs, 04 Pistons, 08 Celtics, 2014 Pacers, and 2020 Bucks. These are historically great defenses, and OKC's right there with them. Crazily enough, they have gotten better in the playoffs. Their defensive rating dropped to an absurd 104.7, around 3.5 points better than the second place Celtics, and over 30 places better than the Miami Heat, and it's the best defensive rating from a team that made the conference finals or further since the 2022 Bucks. In shot quality, OKC also is tied for the best defensive shot quality with Boston. They don't let teams get good shots, as they have defenders everywhere in any spot, and it's also something needed to win the title, as 2 of the last 3 champions finished first. We can just see that in the other team's shooting. Opponents shot just 43.6% against them in the regular season, by far the lowest this year, and the gap from first to second was as big from the gap in second to 14th. They also allowed just a league-leading 34.2% of their opponents' threes to go in. Now, another place where they excel defensively is creating opportunities offensively. Throughout the regular season, OKC forced a league-leading 17 turnovers a game, most in half a decade. That's what helped this defense so much. They make their own offense so much better, and we see that as they are first by far in points off turnovers, and the playoffs have got even better, averaging over 2 more points off turnovers and 1 more opponent turnover. Transition possessions are just so much more valuable than half-court possessions, and this team knows that, which is why they make sure to get out fast. Even when the game is slowed down in the playoffs, they still have the second most transition possessions and points off them so far in the playoffs. But an interesting part of that is on the other side of the ball. Indiana is averaging the most transition points, while OKC is allowing the least, and that will be a battle that should be focused on a lot in the playoffs. Offensively, this team should still be feared, since they do get out in transition so much that helps them a lot, and having an MVP level scorer in Shai, who has multiple signature moves, gives them a great safety blanket. The depth of the shooting is absurd, and even the one non-shooter in the rotation still provides spacing with his elite screen setting. But maybe the scariest part is the runs they will go on. OKC will commonly just go on those 10-0, 15-0 runs that are eerily similar to the Prime Warriors, but with them it isn't a barrage of threes but the defense doing the run. They will genuinely go on 45-minute stretches where they just don't allow the other team to even get an okay look, and will push the pace to immediately get an easy bucket. Now, making a dynasty has unquestionably gone harder in recent times, with the death of the dynasty and parity thriving. No team has won the title multiple times since 2018 over the last 7 years, and just 2 teams have even made the NBA Finals twice in that stretch, one of them being the Heat, who made 2 Cinderella runs to even get there. Even OKC hasn't won a title in Oklahoma, and as a franchise in 46 years, while the Pacers haven't even made it there in a quarter century and haven't won since 1973 in the ABA. All of the last few teams that have won it were expected to continue their push with being perennial contenders, but just one team since 2019 that's won the finals has even made it back to the conference finals, the 2023 Lakers, who had nearly a completely different supporting cast from their 2020 championship, and they even got swept against Denver. Even recently, the Nuggets were expected to become a dynasty after their title, while KCP and Bruce Brown have left since, and Murray and MPJ haven't taken the leaps that were expected, and the addition of Russ and breakout of Brown haven't been enough to cover up for these huge roster flaws, resulting in them getting crushed in Game 7s in the second round the last 2 seasons. With Boston last year, Tatum ruptured his Achilles, and even though he got a different type of surgery, he will still at least be out a majority of the season, and with the second apron catching up to the very expected team, it appears for them as if the next time they seriously compete for a title won't be for a couple years, and will be with a slightly different core. Now, this is all to say, windows are always smaller than you think. Back in 2012, a young OKC team led by KD, Russ, and Harden made the finals and were even favorites entering the series. But even when they lost, fans said they'd be back. A few months later, Harden would be traded and they were never back. And now it's even worse with the new CBA, limiting teams from going too far over the cap and making it much harder to keep a bunch of great players on ludicrous deals. Now, can OKC fight past this for the future and actually become a dynasty? Well, nobody knows, but they are the best set up to do that. Part of OKC's young core still has time before they get their extensions. Chet and JDub are in just their 3rd season, and Cason in his 2nd, while a lot of the rest of the team is locked up under contract for a few more years. AJ and the big Jalen Williams with another year before a likely lower tier contract. Shai, Dort, Hartenstein, and Cason with 2 more years, Joe and Topic with 3, and Caruso and Wiggins with 4 more on ultra team-friendly deals. Caruso at $20 million a year and Wiggins at just under $9 million, likely the best non-rookie contract value in the entire league. The amount of talented players under rotation ensure for the next few years, but what about past that? Well, Presti is one of the best GMs this game has ever seen. Though OKC owning all of these picks is kind of annoying, it may be a way to get out of the CBA. They will have a constant influx of young and cheap good players joining the team, and this goes for years and years. While every championship team is supposed to be the next dynasty, OKC genuinely has the best chance at it, and when, not if, but they win the finals in a couple weeks, they will cement themselves as one of the greatest teams ever, and potentially breaking the era of parity and becoming the next dynasty.